Deven Choksey also joining us. Deven, Happy New Year to you. And let's kickstart perhaps with a look at some of the banks that will be in focus today. SBI, ICICI. So across the board, of course, we will be continued to see focus coming in. Good set of numbers. ICICI perhaps crowded as we were discussing earlier. But just to get a sense from you on perhaps what the key takeaway is, given that numbers have been encouraging and alongside expectations so far from some of the key banking names.
Yeah, good morning and wish you all Happy New Year as well. Certainly, I think you're making a point on the banking space. I think the SBI's result has been quite an encouraging one. The company has basically, I think, provided for all the NPAs, and now I think the recovery process has started. The books are showing relatively robust, I think, profit performance at this juncture. And I guess, I think the over next few quarters, I think too, we should be getting relatively better performance coming in from the banks. Primary reason is that the banks are flush with funds at this point of time. Whatever I think the ill effects of the non-performing assets etc. in the books were there, I think they have been already factored in. You have the situation where the credit offtake is taking place. We saw in this festive season, including in Navratri festive season, that the consumers have started spending. The automobile sales numbers are encouraging. So the banks with a focus towards consumers and the retail lending would probably, I think, get a relatively better performance to talk about. SBI has already aligned itself largely towards the retail lending. So as a result of which, I think you are likely to see the better performance coming in, because the consumer is indeed spending and is likely to spend in the second half of the financial year, given the kind of money that he would have. So I guess I think banks are relatively, I think, safer bet, and probably I think one would like to stay with selective ones in the portfolio.
Look at the pre-open ticks, down by 0.7% for the Nifty, and the Sensex is holding out in the green. Deven, was curious to get in your take as to how much you believe this adverse Supreme Court order for the long-standing AGR case will have a bearing on the telecom players. For instance, you have the likes of Bharti Airtel and Vodafone Idea, and they're liable to pay something like 21,000 crores, 28,000 crores respectively. You also recently had the news of Bharti Airtel deferring their numbers. So how much of an overhang really is this?
Yes, I think this is going to be relatively a serious issue as far as I think these companies are concerned. Not that they have not, I think, factored the provisions part, I think, in the books, but the fact is that the cash will have to be mobilized, and that's the reason I think 3 months in the pipeline, you will have to mobilize the amount of about 80,000 crores among these three companies, Idea, Vodafone and Bharti. So obviously, I think the amount of money that is required to be put in, I think, is going to be quite significantly putting a stress onto their books. At the same time, I think the entire space is moving in the direction of 5G, and I think to have more amount of funds in the area of 5G related network rollout, I think it's going to be a bigger challenge. The one who is going to get lag behind would probably face maximum amount of brunt in the subsequent period, because once the 5G network rolls out and I think applications start setting into those network, it would be very difficult for enterprises to, I think, change over from those network to the newer ones. And as a result of which, I believe that I think companies like Jio would be relatively better placed in the process. So certainly, I think not a good news as far as I think the Supreme Court ruling is concerned on these telcos. We'll have to see how they mobilize funds, I think, as we see in next 3 months of time, in which the court has asked them to put in money with the government.
Okay, so Telecom continues to be, struggling with tough times, particularly Bharti Airtel. Results also deferred now to the 14th of November. Another stock that's taken a little bit of a hit on earnings this time is Indigo. Deven, let's get your view on that, given the kind of cost pressures the company is talking about, and even on the charts, the kind of pressure we're now seeing building up on the stock.
I'm relatively disappointed with the disclosure standards that Indigo has put in across. I think the quarterly results, I think, which has basically given a little bit shocking revelations of some of the cost, I think, that they have levied in the books. Nowhere before, either in the conference call or earning calls or even in the interaction with the management, they have ever clarified this particular aspect, and suddenly like a bombshell, I think this charges have been levied in the books. So to an extent, I think one is disappointed with the disclosure standards. One is not totally worried about the kind of a result per se, because as such I think they are in a situation of almost monopoly in the market today, and that is probably I think giving them an edge over I think others as far as the entire airlines operation is concerned. And given the fact that the aviation fuel prices are under control, certainly I think the biggest cost factor could possibly helping them going forward. In my viewpoint, I think as the talk is in the markets, that if the ATF gets into the GST mold and the prices come down, which according to me would be a challenge for the state governments too, if at all they do that. But even if we assume that it comes down, then probably I think it would be a good time going forward for aviation companies in general, and companies like Indigo in particular, given the size of the market that they carry. So we'll have to wait and see. But as I said, I think the disappointment continues with the disclosure norms. I think company needs to improve on that aspect.
Well, there is a, I was reading a newspaper report of something on one of the websites where the DCAG has said or has instructed Indigo that they need to fix their entire engine issue, otherwise a lot of the planes would be grounded. Now the Pratt & Whitney engines, which currently have been on and off in terms of the passenger safety basic requirement, I guess that's where trouble happened in one of the Indigo for Delhi Mumbai or Mumbai Delhi flights, and that I think has brought this entire issue back to everyone's attention. 14-15 for Indigo. It's not about disclosures. I guess this news is all about passenger safety, and this is like serious affair if they're not able to sort it out. Look at what's happened to Boeing Max after those two unfortunate plane crashes, irrespective of where Boeing is and what they're claiming and what they're stating. I don't think that that aircraft per se has yet gotten the necessary clearance to fly again. So if this really snowballs into a large safety challenge for Indigo, then we are looking at a lot of Indigo fleet suddenly getting grounded, and that could really spell a lot of trouble, at least for Indigo. 14.05 for Indigo. The stock collapsed and crashed again on Friday. Deven, it's easy for everyone to point out disclosure concerns on Dewan Housing, what standards BSU banks have followed, what Z has done in terms of disclosure, Indigo. But Infosys, I never thought in my living career I will report anything like a whistleblower complaint on Infosys, but that's also happened.
Yes, Nikunj, I think this is relatively sad. I think the company which has been, I think, a benchmark for many of us, I think as far as I think their disclosure norms are concerned, probably I think they are coming into question. However, I would like to wait and see as to what kind of seriousness in this whistleblower's complaint against the practices of the company is. I think I would like to see that particular thing coming in from the independent agencies. If they indeed, I think, played around with this particular subject as alleged in the whistleblower's complaint, then it's serious concern for sure. But suppose if that is not, then I think it is asking the regulator to probably tighten the norms of these whistleblowers, because then anonymous letters going in and probably I think creating the kind of impact into the market and the sentiments of the people who are already feared because of the corporate governance issues with many companies, as you rightly said. I think the regulators will have to probably tighten the norms as far as I think the whistleblower related area is concerned. Anybody and everybody cannot be walking away by putting across any kind of a letter and probably threaten the market and the investors. And at the worst is that I think the bear position was built in this particular counter. I think that is the worst thing to happen. Should anything materially found out in this area of activity, it would be really concerning. At this point of time, as I said before also, I would like to reserve my opinion. Given the past credentials of Infosys, I would like to probably allow the management of Infosys to come up with clarity. Should they not, then probably I think we'll have a reason to worry about. But at this point of time, I think I'm just waiting for the clarity to come out.
Give me a list of where you're investing right now. Closer to Diwali, have you made any large, big purchase? Have you altered your portfolio or sold something very aggressively?
Nikunj, we have been continuing to, I think, stay invested with the life insurance business, and at every given opportunity during the market corrections of a smaller degree as well, I think we have been accumulating the life insurance businesses in companies like Bajaj Finserv, and HDFC Life in particular. I think these two stocks have particularly, I think, been added in our portfolios in last few quarters as well. At the same time, I think we have been continuing to put our money into subjects like Reliance in every correction, because I think we believe that I think the demerger process under which I think this company is now going ahead with is ultimately going to monetize the business proposition for I think most of the investors from their investment portfolio. So we continue to like them. Otherwise, I think the preference stays with I think likes of ABB, where we believe that the subject is I think becoming more and more clearer as far as their business model is concerned. The IoT based I think processes in connecting the grids, in connecting the water supply mechanisms, in connecting the city civil infrastructure. I think these are some of the areas where we believe that I think likes of ABB could be probably I think much better place. So these are few companies. Apart from that, I think we've been taking some contra calls on the automobile companies, and in particular I think we have been adding stocks in companies like Ashok Leyland and smaller quantities of Tata Motors in the past, though I think the stock has moved up in last few days. But yes, I think we've been buying.
All right, Deven, appreciate your time.